How does Braille enable deaf people to talk with their tongues?
Why would a Roman suck at Braille?
Why would Louis Braille drop in at Disneyland?
And what's the deal with Braille on the keys of an ATM at a drive-thru?
This week we got Jerry Seinfeld on the show. All right, hello and welcome back to Everything You Didn't Need to Know About. Today we are talking everything you didn't need to know about Braille. Oh, it's a wonderful thing. It's a reading and writing system for blind people like myself. What? Yeah, I'm a blindo. So who will take out the prize today? Will it be Nathan Kenny? Will it be Jen Jewell? Will it be Thom Adams? Will it be myself, Sam Smith? We will see very soon. I've decided that the prize today for the person who delivers the best fact will be my cane.
Oh, wow.
Hey, really hope you win today, Sam. I'm not going to lie.
I call it my cool cane.
Hey, I get it.
Well, first of all, Braille was invented by a 15-year-old kid called Louis Braille. But he kind of stole the idea from it. No, not stole the idea. He was inspired by a system that a man called Charles Barbier. Kenny, your wife is French. Has it said Barbier?
I believe so. Barbier?
Probably not pronounced Charles, though.
Charles. He was in the French military, right? And it was to communicate at nighttime.
They had an interview with him later in life with Barbier, and he said, "Oh no, I actually made it for blind people. I just used it in the military because we needed a system, and I already had one."
I mean, if you're going to steal from any military, the French military is the one you'd steal it from, right?
I thought you were going to say if you're going to steal from anyone, you should steal from blind children, which seemed like a dodgy life lesson. A lot of sense when you think about it, like the idea of a communication system which you can read without lights, so the enemy can't see you reading it. You don't need noise, you don't need to talk to each other. It's a really good idea. It's just that the version that he invented kind of sucked and was unnecessarily difficult.
Yeah, so his one was made of it was 12 dots down, so you couldn't read it in one fingerprint, whereas Braille is a series of 6 dots in different orientations, so you know what they spell out, and it's not a language itself, it's a system for encoding other languages. So you can have, so the original Braille was in French, and then of course there's other ones in English, and it's become heaps. There are heaps of different versions. You can get everything in Braille these days.
So you know how you have italics and bold font and all that sort of thing. Am I allowed to say normal text? Is that pejorative to blind people?
Just say text.
They refer to Braille books and ink text books, which I quite like.
You can get italics in Braille and bold font in Braille and things like that, right?
Yeah. Louis Braille was a really good musician. He wrote music in Braille. You can write out a Braille line and it'll tell you what notes to play, for how long. You can just do everything with it. It's such a wonderful system, and that's why people are still using it, even though he invented it back in, 1820 something.
Yeah, but isn't that basically what one of those auto pianos does? It's just
pianola.
basically got a pianola, it's just basically got like a punch card, which is just the kind of inverse of Braille.
What I love, Sam, about the book that he wrote about musical notation in Braille was that it wasn't originally printed in Braille. It was originally printed in just like raised up letters.
That's right. So that's the system people used before Braille, and what Louis Braille was taught how to read. It's just like, it would have taken so long.
It's so difficult.
So annoying. And in fact, at the school he taught at, because Louis Braille went on to become a teacher at the school he was a student at, he created the system, and the school refused to make it part of the system. And then, 2 years after Louis Braille died, they started using the system. So he never got to, excuse this wording, he never got to see what he did come to fruition.
It's really interesting the way that Braille's popularity has kind of waxed and waned, and it feels like there's a lot of sort of ideologies that go with it, whether blind or low vision people should be taught Braille, or whether they should be taught to just listen to things, or whether they should be taught one of these other languages. I read an interesting stat that said that in 1960, 50% of blind children in the US could read Braille, and then in the 1980s it was like 6%. Can you imagine if we just started teaching all of our kids in, Braille's a binary language, so if we started teaching all of our kids in base 2, and then 40 years later we're like, oh no, you're all going to learn in base 10 again, we're bored of that now.
Yeah.
Like, it's pretty massive.
I did like the fact that Sam said before, you could see blah blah blah. Whereas Jen used feel just then. It feels like so
Jen's much more
That was
sensitive to the
totally-
blind community than I am.
Yeah.
Smells to me like there's a lot of conversations that need to be had around how we use sense language.
I'd hate to be insensitive.
Did you guys know how Louis Braille became blind? He was 3 years old, and his dad was what was he? Some kind of craftsman. He had a thing called an owl, which is like basically imagine a nail on a handle.
An awl. Yeah,
AWL.
AWL.
Did I not say that?
You said owl, which is much more exciting.
So he's using an awl, and he accidentally bounced off the leather he was punching holes in. It got him in the eye.
Oh,
Yeah.
That's
so
one eye.
That's one eye.
then
And
it bounced
then-
out and got the other one.
Well, even worse, the eye got infected, and the infection spread to his other eye. So
Oh, okay.
within the next
Less
2
fun.
years, he lost all his vision. But then, really interestingly, later when he invented Braille, the tool he used to punch the dots into the paper was an awl.
That's really cool. So he turned the thing that blinded him into a way for other blind or low vision people to.
Potentially also blind themselves.
It's crazy to think that you could get an infection in one eye that spreads to your other eye. Like in my head, they're just kind of like in two bony sockets, not really interacting with each other. But I guess there's all the what's it called?
Yeah.
Like the
Gubbins is the technical term. I think.
With me, my blindness is from it's an optic nerve thing, so it's nothing to do with my eyes at all. It's mainly my left eye that's blind, and then my right eye is just a little bit blind. I need a
That's what
third eye blind as well.
I've
Yeah.
heard of that happening in pregnancy as well. There was a woman who one of the veins in her head crossed over her optic nerve in a way that wasn't usual. Because when you're pregnant, you have like 1.5 liters more blood than normal because you're also carrying all the blood for the fetus. The vein that crossed over her optic nerve started to swell. And as she got further and further through the pregnancy, the vein was putting pressure on her optic nerve. And as she was going through the pregnancy, she was losing her vision. And the doctors were saying, we don't know if you're going to get it back. Like, this might be permanent. So it's her first pregnancy and she's having vision loss and, you know, no idea whether it's going to come back.
Jen, are you telling me that I might be pregnant?
I'm telling you, you might be
Whoa.
pregnant. Congratulations.
Thank you so much.
I find that fascinating. Like our
Yeah.
eyes, you don't really think about like the mechanics behind them. You think about, you know, I've got dust in my eyes, or, you know, I'm nearsighted or farsighted or whatever. You don't really think about the kind of mechanics behind your eyes and the fact that they could just be affected like that by what is effectively bad wiring. I just find that so fascinating.
Well, speaking of bad wiring, I mean, you are blind in your eye at one point. There's the famous blind spot, which is where your optic nerve goes into the eye, and so you have a point in your eye where you simply can't see, and so you can actually find it by closing one eye, and there's like a kind of a thing you can do with your thumbs, and the reason why you don't notice it is because your brain paints that blank spot in, which is amazing.
Yes,
Brains are clever.
because my mum
Very clever.
has astigmatism, so her eyes are constantly moving, but she doesn't see.
She's
that,
Jesus.
obviously. She is Jesus, but only in her eyes. The rest of her is very simple.
Is that why they call it cross eyes?
Oh, that makes so much sense. No,
We've
but,
solved Jesus.
and even like as you're moving around during the day, as you're walking, you don't see your vision going da-dum, 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 because your brain just automatically like adjusts.
Yeah. I don't mean to do this, but I keep an eye out for things, funny Braille things and funny blind things. And I just read one today. It was a billboard for a Stevie Wonder concert, but it was written in Braille. But it's a billboard, so it's like
Yeah.
10 meters in the air,
Yeah.
which was pretty great.
I like the one which is caution, hot glass. This door opens outwards. Please don't stand on the outside of this door.
They're called Braille Fails, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I saw a guy as well who got his name written in Braille on his arm, and then but of course it's not raised at all, so it's useless to a blind person. But you can actually get full proper tattoos that have the raised bits in it. They put some sort of something under your skin so you can actually read what it says. And I love that, because if you age and your body sags like it does, it'll say something different in like 20 years.
Yep.
In memory of my lovely mother, and it then just becomes like cauliflower. Hey, so just going back to talking about Louis Braille, who was a pretty amazing person. when he died, I believe he died from tuberculosis, but he had it for 16 years before he died. And I think he died at 42 or somewhere in his 40s. But when he died, he was buried in the town that he's from, which is called Couvray in France. But a couple of years later, because Braille became such a big thing, that they actually dug his body up and they sent it to the Pantheon in Paris. So just because it's a flash place where everyone will go to, apart from his hands, which they left in Couvray. And I love the idea that if zombie Louis Braille decides to go and visit his hands, he needs to take a train, and that train would go to the nearest big train station, which is Marne-la-Vallée/Chessy, which is the main train station next to Disneyland Paris. He would have to go to Disneyland Paris to go and visit his own hands back in his hometown.
Blind zombies, one assumes, have to read the Braille on the train signs, right?
Braille. Zombie Braille. He'd also pass by Notre Dame, which would be like, oh, he could go and see Quasimodo. I just watched Hunchback of Notre Dame like a week ago, so I'm thinking about it lots.
Braille doesn't just help out blind people. So researchers at the University of Colorado have figured out a device that sits in the roof of your mouth if you're a deaf person. And if you press your tongue up against it, it will put in Braille the things that the person is saying to you. So as people are speaking, it will live translate into things that you can put your tongue up against and hear. So for people who can't get cochlear implants can instead use their tongue.
Kenny, that's amazing.
Closed mouth captions?
Yeah, pretty much.
That's really good.
It does mean that you could never eat an ice block while listening to someone talk, though, which is quite sad.
No, I think that's great. You can just focus on eating the ice block.
So speaking of like helpful things for Braille, my one, it's like one of those really old kind of questions that people have, like, what's baby oil made out of? Or why is there Braille on ATM keys in a drive-through? And the answer is because they're not going to make ATMs specifically for drive-throughs. And you have to have, like, according, at least in the USA, you have to have, every ATM has to have access, has to have Braille on it. Every single one. There's no loophole for drive-throughs.
And the other thing, of course, is if you're blind, you can sit in the back seat of a car and still use a drive-through ATM. Like, it's not. Yeah. I love the idea of you going to see Jerry Seinfeld, Tom, and just be like, because the blind people also need to use the ATM, and it's illegal not to have the Braille on it.
Jezza, have you heard of the ADA?
So everyone always loves the person who law-splains the jokes. That's always a total winner in conversation.
That's great.
But I think it's really great. I think accessible ATMs are really, really important. Where I used to live in London, there was a Cockney ATM, which translated into the local parlance, so that when you logged in, it said, some moolah for your skyrocket, your rattle and tank balance.
Amazing.
So what do you think it meant if it says sausage and mash, no receipt?
Cash, no receipt.
Correct. Balance on Charlie Sheen?
I'm having lots of cocaine.
It's all 20s. You can also get Huckleberry Finn change. That's if you want to change your PIN number. It was just wonderful. It was completely unnecessary and so obstructive.
So wait, so Huckleberry Finn is PIN?
Yeah. Even the word Finn is one letter longer than PIN.
It's like that filter you get for your Chrome browser where it like translates everything into pirate. And everyone's like, this is so fun, and then you realize immediately this is the worst thing in the fucking world.
What's a pirate's favorite letter?
R.
You'd think so, but it's actually the C. I'm quite excited about being a pirate because I only have vision in one eye. I can legitimately wear an eye patch, and I'm so excited about doing that. I'm going to get one.
When do you get your medical support parrot?
True. Do you know, when you think about famous blind people, who do you reckon's the most famous?
Helen Keller.
Yeah, I was going to say, does Helen Keller count? Because she's...
does the deafness negate the blindness, Jen?
Well, no, but it's just, she's not famous for being blind. She's famous for being deaf-blind.
Whoever that referee from the France All Blacks
Wayne Barnes, good call.
Yeah, fucking Wayne Barnes.
Yeah, g'day. It's
settle down, Tom.
He summoned him.
The actual answer is the most famous blind person is Blinken from Robin Hood Men in Tights. He is an actor.
Yeah.
His name is Mark Blankfield. He played Blinken in Robin Hood Men in Tights, which is one of the best comedy movies of all time. He's a blind character. And I didn't realize this. Blinken from Robin Hood Men in Tights is Dr. Miller from Arrested Development. The one that bandages up people with bandage around their head no matter what happens to them in season 1. That blew my mind.
Very exciting, Sam.
Thanks.
Oh.
I just want to point out that Mark Blankfield is 100% a fake name. That is I saw a mafia guy kill another guy and I had to go on the run and they asked me what my name was and I went, Mark Blankfield.
I love that he played a blind man and his name is Blankfield of Vision.
Oh, he just didn't fill out his last name. So
Yeah.
they were like, oh, what is it?
We just left him like a mark on the first part as well.
There are some places in the world where they've set little raised lines across the road so that when you drive over them at the correct speed, they play a little song.
Yeah, that's awesome. Have you been, has any of you been on them?
No.
No, me neither. I want to.
I've heard about one in Japan.
Oh,
and
move
one
on.
in Germany. I just want to say something else that sounds really cool, which is that Braille is a binary writing system employing a base 2 numeral system where every digit is formed of a tuple of 6 bits. which
Yeah,
I just
thanks,
really
Jen. That's
appreciate.
great.
So Jen is now going to explain what she's just said to us. Thank you.
But when you think about Braille, it's such a clever system and it's so different from every kind of writing system that we've developed before, but it also kind of prefigured computer programming because it's that same idea of using a binary language of everything is either raised or not, or yes or no, or 0 or 1, depending on how you want to write your binary. But I just really like the idea that a single piece of information in a binary language is called a tuple, which is just a cute name.
It's really cute. I love the fact is when Braille was invented, it took a while for them to make the Braille for W because French doesn't have W's in it, or very rarely. And so, yeah, when Braille went to English, they were like, oh, crap, we need a W. We use these all the time. So they had to make a new one for it.
But each line of 10 characters in the Braille system is called a decade.
Is that true?
It's long.
Yeah.
Oh, that's
So
great.
A to L is a decade, and then M to whatever is a decade. And
Yeah, great. And you can get these cool
Yeah.
machines that you plug into like your USB or whatever, and it has like a thin strip with a bunch of little holes in it, and you highlight something on the screen, and it'll actually come up with a Braille that you can then feel and read what it says on a computer screen right now, which I think is amazing.
yeah, I worked with a
really
girl
cool.
in London who was, I don't think she was completely blind, but she definitely had very low vision, and she used one. So she had a special Braille keyboard for typing, and then she had this kind of output thing, because there were certain documents that we couldn't give her because like anything highlighted in red wouldn't be read by the system. Sorry, wouldn't be recognized by the system.
Yeah.
But everything else, it would just like take it and transfer it. They used OCR, so
Orange County
what is this?
Register.
Orange County Register, thank you. Whatever that is, automatic character recognition, basically, and translates the squiggles in the PDF or whatever into Braille on her keyboard.
That's
which I just
amazing,
thought was
eh?
so clever.
It's amazing.
So she could just sit there
That-
quite happily reading documents without being able to physically see them.
Meanwhile, all of her co-workers are drawing big cock and balls onto all of the documents they're sending to her. Yep.
Why would a Roman suck at Braille, Jen?
Why is a raven like a writing desk?
Actually funny, it's the same answer to both riddles. Because in the Braille system, you use the letters A, B, C, D, E, F, G, H, I, J to stand for the digits 1 to 10, but you just have a little other symbol before them that says this is a number, not a letter. And the Roman alphabet likewise uses letters. So they would be very confused to see C is 3 rather than 100.
Oh, yeah.
I is 9 rather than 1.
I'll have 5 beers. Thanks.
I love that a Roman person could be like, this is my X, and there are 10 people there.
I also just wanted to talk about there's another version of raised lettering for blind people, which is it's called Moon Type, and it was invented by an English Methodist preacher guy. And it basically just it's the same concept of everything is uniform little squares, but the shapes of the characters kind of approximate their Roman ink type form. So the A is just kind of a big loop, and C just looks like a C, and D is just like a D but without the straight vertical line. So yeah, it's really interesting. It looks really cool, but I can see it would be actually quite difficult to read, more so than Braille, I think.
I wonder if that one would be better for people who have been sighted and then have lost vision, and it's a bit easier to get in there.
Quite possibly.
Maybe, I don't know.
And I just really like the idea that you can use a Braille typing machine to create what they call dotty moon.
What is the Braille equivalent of like whiteout? What do you do if you make a mistake? Do you just
there is a backspace key on Braille typewriters. I saw a guy using one. It just basically like smooths the paper back flat.
Oh, okay.
It pushes it back in. When they originally wrote, Braille, without using a typewriter, they'd use like a stylus on a piece of slate, and you'd have to write backwards because you'd be pushing it through. Yeah,
very well trained tawny owl.
Yeah,
that would be great though. Train an owl to like be your translator, like the Flintstones.
Yeah, that'd be great. It's a living.
I really like that a lot of countries have Braille symbols on their banknotes so that you can tell easily which one is which. And in New Zealand, instead, we have what looks like a tiny plastic card wallet with a little graduated bubbly thing to show you which note is which I think would be really helpful in a really windy city like Wellington.
Yeah. Did you guys know that World Blindness Day is January the 4th, which is the same day that Sir Edmund Hillary got to the South Pole? It's the same day that Watergate was. It's the same day that T.S. Eliot died. And that's funny because his name is an anagram of toilets.
So T.S. Eliot was the guy who wrote Cats, which is an anagram of scat as well.
That's right.
Quite fitting given his anagram.
Anyway, hey, we're running out of time, so we better just do a quick wrap up of what our facts are. Mine was that Zombie Louis Braille would have to visit Disneyland if he was going to go visit his hands.
My fact was that deaf people can also use Braille by using their tongue.
My fact was that the reason why there's Braille and ATM keys in drive-thrus is because there's Braille and all ATM keys, because they have to.
My fact was that Romans would suck at Braille because, like the Roman language, Latin language even, Braille uses letters to signify numerical constructs.
Fantastic. All right. On 3, we're going to vote for the person we think had the best fact of the day. And a 1, and a 2, and a 3.
Okay, so all 3 of us voted for Sam.
Michael
Mine was also
Caine,
just
you're
because
coming
his
home
fact
with
was
me.
really good.
But now I can say, where'd you get that came from? I'll say, I won a bit of podcast. Well, thank you for listening, everyone. Thank you for watching, if you do have the ability to watch. If you have any facts that we missed out about Braille or blindness, please pop them down in the comments below. We are also going to post this podcast with the Blind Low Vision NZ podcast, so have a listen to that as well. Please keep listening. Please keep watching. We love making these. And next week, we will be back with another fantastic topic, which I think is going to be... It's Star Wars. We're doing Star Wars next week. Oh, amazing. All right. Thanks for listening, everyone. Goodbye.
You're a Jedi, Harry.